The 1950s, an era remembered for clean-cut families, glowing jukeboxes, and a Hollywood bound by rules so strict that one wrong word could sink a career. Yet, beneath the polished veneer, daring filmmakers pushed back, testing the limits of what could be shown, said, or even implied. But what films shook the guardians of morality the hardest? Stay with me, these bold movies rewrote the rulebook. Number 15. The Moon is Blue, 1953. When The Moon is Blue premiered, it was hailed as a breezy romantic comedy, but beneath its laughter hid the first tremors of rebellion. Directed by Otto Preminger, the film followed a young woman navigating the perils of modern romance. On the surface, harmless, but the script dared to use words the production code had strictly forbidden: virgin, seduce, and mistress. Imagine a nation where even the mildest reference to adult relationships could trigger outrage. The Catholic Legion of Decency condemned the movie, branding it objectionable. Several state censor boards flat-out banned it. Hollywood insiders whispered that Preminger's stubborn refusal to cut the offending dialogue was professional suicide. Yet he stood firm, daring the distributors to release it unapproved. And here's the twist. The public loved it. Audiences flocked to theaters, delighted by the witty, candid conversations. Critics were divided, some applauded its honesty, while others warned it was a dangerous crack in the dam of morality. The legacy? That crack became a flood. The Moon is Blue didn't just spark giggles, it helped dismantle the once untouchable production code, proving that the audience could handle more than the censors believed. What seemed like a light comedy became a landmark battle in the war for cinematic freedom. A simple word, once banned, had lit a revolution. Number 14. Baby Doll, 1956. When Elia Kazan's Baby Doll hit the screens, scandal wasn't just expected, it was inevitable. Marketed with the tagline, "She's 19, she's married, she's still a virgin." The film dared to explore desire and power in ways that left censors gasping. Adapted from Tennessee Williams' plays, it told the story of a frustrated husband, his young bride, and the rival who seduces her away. The Catholic Legion of Decency immediately branded it immoral. Southern theaters refused to book it. Politicians called it a disgrace to American values. Newspapers published fiery editorials, warning it would corrupt youth. And behind the scenes, studio executives panicked, fearing both boycotts and government intervention. But here's the kicker. Despite all the outrage, Baby Doll received 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Actress for Carol Baker. Critics praised its daring performances and haunting Southern Gothic atmosphere. For many, it represented a bold new honesty in American film, where characters could be flawed, raw, and painfully real. Still, the controversy stuck. Some theaters canceled screenings after public protests. Others ran it under police guard. Kazan himself admitted he expected censorship, but never imagined the ferocity of the backlash. Over time, the scandal faded, but the film's influence grew. What once shocked censors became a daring milestone, paving the way for the more liberated cinema of the 60s. Today, Baby Doll is remembered less for the fury it caused, and more for the courage it represented. Its story, controversial in its day, marked the end of innocence in Hollywood storytelling. Number 13. The Man with the Golden Arm, 1955. When Otto Preminger released The Man with the Golden Arm, critics gasped. This wasn't a glossy studio drama, it was raw, sweaty, and unflinchingly dark. Starring Frank Sinatra as a card dealer struggling with addiction, the film tackled a subject Hollywood had strictly forbidden: the very existence of narcotics. Imagine the shock. At the time, the production code flatly prohibited any depiction of drug use, but Preminger, already known as a troublemaker for The Moon is Blue, refused to play by the rules. The censors refused to grant approval. Studios predicted financial disaster. Yet United Artists released the film without the production code seal. a bold middle finger to the system. The public reaction? Explosive. Many theaters refused to screen it, fearing fines or boycotts. Religious groups railed against it, accusing Preminger of glamorizing vice. But audiences poured in anyway, captivated by Sinatra's raw, vulnerable performance. Critics hailed his turn as career-defining. For once, Hollywood didn't hide behind euphemism, it showed the struggle as it was. Behind the scenes, Sinatra himself threw everything into the role. Determined to prove he wasn't just a fading crooner, he studied addicts in clinics, capturing the jittery desperation on screen. His gamble worked. He earned an Academy Award nomination, solidifying his acting legacy. And the aftermath? The censors lost ground. By defying the code and still finding success, the man with the golden arm cracked open a door. Other filmmakers soon rushed through. What was once taboo became the stuff of searing drama. The film proved that audiences were ready to face the darker corners of human life, and Hollywood could never again pretend otherwise. Number 12. Blackboard Jungle, 1955. When MGM released Blackboard Jungle, no one was prepared for the chaos it unleashed. Billed as a gritty schoolroom drama, it followed a teacher struggling to control a violent inner-city classroom. Starring Glenn Ford and a young Sidney Poitier, it ripped away the polite facade of American education and showed a world of knives, gangs, and broken dreams. But what really ignited fury wasn't just the violence, it was the music. For the first time, a Hollywood film featured rock and roll Bill Haley and his Comets' Rock Around the Clock thundered over the credits. To adults, it sounded like rebellion itself. Some whispered it would cause riots, and they weren't wrong. At screenings across the country, teenagers leapt from their seats, dancing in the aisles, breaking windows, and clashing with police. In England, authorities banned the movie after screenings sparked violence in several cities. Critics accused it of glorifying delinquency, while defenders argued it merely held up a mirror to society's failures. Behind the scenes, MGM had been nervous from the start. Studio bosses debated cutting the rock soundtrack entirely, fearing it would poison the film's reputation. But director Richard Brooks insisted the music was essential, and history proved him right. Blackboard Jungle became a landmark, not just for its story, but for unleashing rock and roll into mainstream cinema. Its legacy? Immense. It gave Sidney Poitier his breakthrough, announced rock as a cultural force, and forced America to confront its youth rebellion head-on. What began as a school drama ended up sparking one of the loudest generational divides in film history. Number 11. Tea and Sympathy, 1956. On the surface, Tea and Sympathy looked like a polite MGM melodrama. Directed by Vincente Minnelli, it told the story of a sensitive young man bullied for not fitting the masculine mold of the 1950s. Yet underneath its polished veneer lay themes that Hollywood dared not name: social conformity, prejudice, and the crushing cost of being different. Censors were horrified. Even the faintest hint of questioning traditional gender roles was enough to spark panic. The production code demanded severe cuts, forcing Minnelli to tone down the story's implications. But even watered down, audiences understood the subtext. The whispers were unmistakable. What if the character was persecuted not just for being sensitive, but for being perceived as something far more taboo in conservative America? The controversy exploded. Religious leaders condemned the film as dangerous propaganda. Some theaters refused to book it. Critics split between praise for its sensitivity and outrage at its daring. And yet, audiences came drawn by the tension between what was shown and what was implied. Behind the scenes, the cast itself was divided. Deborah Kerr defended the film fiercely, insisting its message of compassion was vital. MGM, however, played it safe, downplaying the controversy in its advertising. And the aftermath? Tea and Sympathy opened cracks in the wall of silence around identity and conformity. While it couldn't say everything outright, it said enough to resonate with those who lived its reality. Its legacy is bittersweet, a film that dared to whisper what others feared to scream. In a decade of rigid roles, it asked, what is the cost of being true to yourself? Number 10. A Streetcar Named Desire, 1951. From the moment A Streetcar Named Desire premiered, it was both a triumph and a scandal. Adapted from Tennessee Williams' explosive play, directed by Elia Kazan, and starring Marlon Brando in his breakout role, it delivered a level of raw emotion audiences had never seen before. But here's the twist. What made the play a sensation was precisely what horrified censors. The production code demanded heavy cuts. Scenes of brutality, innuendo, and psychological torment were softened or rewritten. The Catholic Legion of Decency demanded even harsher edits, and Warner Brothers reluctantly complied, terrified of a national boycott. Yet even censored, the film shocked. Brando's performance was animalistic, electric, dangerous. Vivien Leigh's descent into madness was devastating. Critics called it both a masterpiece and indecent. Audiences whispered about what had been cut, and rumors swirled about scenes deemed too raw ever to be shown. Behind the scenes, the tension was real. Kazan fought to preserve as much of Williams' daring material as possible, while studio executives demanded compromise. Brando himself clashed with the press, refusing to apologize for a performance some called vulgar. The legacy, immortal. Streetcar won 4 Academy Awards, cementing Brando's stardom and changing acting forever. But it also exposed the limits of censorship. Audiences could feel the raw power of what had been removed. In trying to soften the story, the censors only made its shadows loom larger. In the end, A Streetcar Named Desire wasn't just a film, it was a cultural earthquake. It asked viewers to confront desire, violence, and fragility in ways Hollywood had long denied. The censors fought to bury its fire, but its heat burned through anyway. Number 9. The Wild One, 1953. When The Wild One roared into theaters, America had never seen anything like it. Marlon Brando, clad in leather, astride a gleaming Triumph motorcycle, embodied a new archetype, the brooding rebel who didn't play by the rules. "What are you rebelling against?" he's asked. His smirking reply, "What ya got?" sent shivers through middle America. The story followed a biker gang invading a small town, spreading fear, violence, and chaos. For the first time, Hollywood depicted youth culture not as squeaky clean, but dangerous and untamed. And that terrified censors. Several U.S. states banned the film outright, claiming it would inspire delinquency. Across the Atlantic, British authorities went further. They banned it entirely for over a decade, fearing it would corrupt their young men. Behind the scenes, Brando's performance caused its own controversy. His naturalistic style clashed with older Hollywood traditions, unnerving critics who called him vulgar and incoherent. The studio, Columbia Pictures, braced for failure. Instead, the movie became a sensation among the very audience censors feared: teenagers. The backlash was swift. Parent groups demanded stricter censorship. Lawmakers railed against Hollywood's glorification of thugs. But the genie was out of the bottle. Brando's leather jacket, tilted cap, and menacing swagger became cultural icons. Its legacy? Immense. The Wild One didn't just spark bands, it ignited the rebel archetype that would shape everything from James Dean to punk rock. What began as a warning to parents became a rallying cry for restless youth. For censors, it was a nightmare. For culture, it was a revolution. Number 8. Peyton Place, 1957. When Peyton Place premiered, it looked like a standard small-town melodrama. But audiences quickly realized it wasn't about polite dinners or family squabbles. It was about secrets, scandals, and the hypocrisies simmering under small-town America. Based on Grace Mellius's controversial novel, the film dared to tackle subjects most Hollywood scripts avoided at all costs. The story depicted hidden affairs, forbidden relationships, even the shadow of abuse, all behind the curtain of a perfect New England community. Censors fought tooth and nail, cutting and softening much of the novel's raw material. But even diluted, the implications were unmistakable. Some critics condemned it as immoral. Religious groups blasted it for daring to expose the dark underside of American family life. Yet, audiences flocked to see it. The controversy only fueled ticket sales, making it one of the top-grossing films of the decade. Behind the scenes, the cast struggled with the tension between Hollywood polish and the story's darker edges. Lana Turner, cast as a tormented mother, gave one of her most acclaimed performances yet off-screen. Her own personal scandals made the parallels all the more striking. The legacy? Peyton Place received 9 Academy Award nominations and became a cultural phenomenon. It inspired a long-running TV series that pushed boundaries even further. What began as a book dismissed as smut became a Hollywood cornerstone, forcing audiences to admit that beneath the white picket fences, shadows always lurked. Number 7. Anatomy of a Murder, 1959. When Otto Preminger returned with Anatomy of a Murder, he didn't just push boundaries, he obliterated them. The courtroom drama, starring James Stewart, explored the murder trial of a man who claimed his wife's assault drove him to kill. On paper, it was classic crime drama. In execution, it was shocking. For the first time, a Hollywood film openly used words like rape, contraceptive, and panties. These weren't metaphors or whispered suggestions. They were stated plainly, in a courtroom, in front of the audience. The production code fought bitterly, demanding changes. Preminger refused. He released it as written, daring censors to stop him. Some theaters refused to screen it. Religious leaders condemned it as obscene. Yet critics praised its boldness, and audiences packed theaters. James Stewart, known for his wholesome image, stunned viewers with his gritty, no-nonsense performance. Behind the scenes, Preminger courted controversy deliberately. He knew the uproar would draw crowds, and he was right. The movie became a box office success and earned 7 Academy Award nominations. Its legacy? Monumental. Anatomy of a Murder didn't just test the limits, it redefined them. By showing that audiences could handle frank discussion of adult realities, it helped dismantle the very censorship codes that had ruled Hollywood since the 1930s. What was once forbidden became a milestone of honesty. The courtroom doors had opened, and they would never fully close again. Number 6. The Defiant Ones, 1958. When The Defiant Ones premiered, it wasn't just a film, it was a powder keg. Directed by Stanley Kramer, it told the story of 2 escaped prisoners, one white, Tony Curtis, and one black, Sidney Poitier, shackled together as they flee across a hostile landscape. In an era of segregation, the sight of a white man and a black man chained together was incendiary. Some theaters in the South refused to screen it. Others demanded cuts. Censors in certain regions argued it was dangerous to show interracial cooperation, let alone friendship. But audiences couldn't look away. Poitier delivered one of his breakthrough performances, commanding respect and dignity in a Hollywood still reluctant to give black actors serious roles. Curtis, too, stretched beyond his matinee idol image, proving his dramatic power. Behind the scenes, tensions were high. Both actors wrestled with the film's themes in a time when racial violence was exploding across America. Kramer faced pressure from studio executives to soften the message. He refused. The legacy was undeniable. The Defiant Ones earned 9 Academy Award nominations and 2 wins, including Best Original Screenplay. It paved the way for more honest depictions of race in Hollywood, even as it provoked outrage in certain regions. More than a drama, it was a statement. In binding 2 men together, Kramer forced America to confront its divisions. Censors wanted silence, but the film spoke loudly, and its echoes can still be heard today. Number 5. Sudden Fear, 1952. When Sudden Fear premiered, audiences expected another glamorous Joan Crawford vehicle. What they got was something darker. A twisting psychological thriller about betrayal, obsession, and murder. Crawford played a successful playwright who discovers her young husband is plotting to kill her. The film's tension was palpable, but its raw edge unnerved censors. Why? Because it dared to portray a woman not as a victim of circumstance, but as a calculating survivor who turns the tables. Crawford's character doesn't crumble, she fights back. In a decade that often painted women as passive, this reversal was shocking. Critics whispered that the movie was too violent and too cruel, especially in its climactic chase through the darkened streets of San Francisco. Behind the scenes, Crawford fought to maintain the role's toughness. Studio executives pushed for a softer ending, fearing audiences would reject a heroine who matched cruelty with cruelty. Crawford refused, and the result was one of her most iconic late-career performances, earning her an Academy Award nomination. The legacy of Sudden Fear lies in its subversion. It took the polished trappings of a studio melodrama and infused it with jagged edges, hinting at the darker, more complex thrillers of the decades to come. It was proof that women on screen could be more than victims. They could be the architects of their own survival. Number 4. The Big Heat, 1953. When Fritz Lang released The Big Heat, it detonated like dynamite. On the surface, it was a crime thriller. A lone detective takes on a crime syndicate after his wife is murdered. But beneath that, it was something more, an unflinching portrait of corruption, brutality, and vengeance that rattled censors to their core. The violence was shocking for its time. In one infamous scene, Lee Marvin's gangster throws a pot of scalding coffee into Gloria Graham's face, an act so brutal it stunned audiences into silence. Critics accused Lang of pushing beyond decency. The production code bristled, arguing that the film reveled in cruelty. Behind the scenes, Lang fought battles with Columbia executives who wanted a cleaner, less disturbing film. But Lang insisted on showing the consequences of crime, not sanitizing them. His insistence paid off. While some theaters balked at screening it, The Big Heat quickly built a reputation as one of the grittiest noirs ever made. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece of moral ambiguity, where even the good guys are consumed by rage. Its legacy is immense. It influenced generations of crime films, from the French New Wave to Martin Scorsese. What once horrified censors became a landmark in film noir, a story where violence scarred both body and soul. Number 3. Picnic, 1955. At first glance, Picnic seemed harmless, a romantic drama set in small-town Kansas. But William Inge's play, brought to the screen by director Joshua Logan, contained layers of sensuality and longing that scandalized conservative audiences. The story followed a drifter, played by William Holden, whose arrival unsettles the entire town, especially its women. The famous scene of Holden dancing shirtless with Kim Novak, her eyes filled with yearning, became one of the decade's most talked-about moments. For censors, the implication of passion outside of marriage was unacceptable. Some boards demanded the scene be trimmed, fearing it encouraged immoral thoughts. Behind the scenes, Holden himself was nervous about the role. At 37, he worried he was too old to play a youthful drifter. Yet, his rugged vulnerability electrified audiences. Novak, then still proving herself, became a star overnight. The reaction was divided. Religious leaders condemned it as indecent. Teenagers and young women embraced it as a breath of fresh air, a story that acknowledged desire rather than burying it. The legacy of Picnic is undeniable. It won 2 Academy Awards and remains a cultural touchstone for its daring depiction of small-town repression. What the censors feared became its strength. a reminder that beneath the quiet streets and polite smiles of the 1950s, longing always simmered. Number 2. Rebel Without a Cause, 1955. Few films rattled the 1950s like Rebel Without a Cause. James Dean's tragic performance as Jim Stark, the lost teenager searching for identity, turned into a symbol for an entire generation. But here's the twist. It wasn't just Dean's magnetic presence that troubled censors. It was the theme's juvenile delinquency, broken families, and the suggestion that American youth were spiraling out of control. For a country priding itself on post-war prosperity, this was heresy. The film was heavily scrutinized. Some theaters refused to show it, fearing riots similar to those sparked by Blackboard Jungle. Critics accused it of glamorizing rebellion. Religious groups warned it would inspire copycat behavior. And after Dean's sudden death in a car crash just weeks before the premiere, the movie took on an eerie, almost prophetic aura. Behind the scenes, tension crackled. Dean clashed with director Nicholas Ray, pushing for authenticity in every scene. Natalie Wood and Sal Mineo, both giving career-defining performances, later revealed the production was as emotionally volatile off-screen as it appeared on film. The legacy? Immortal. Rebel, Without a Cause defined youth rebellion, shaping everything from fashion to music to cinema itself. What censors wanted to suppress became the very heartbeat of a new generation. Number 1. Some Like It Hot, 1959. And here we are, the boldest of them all. Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot was billed as a screwball comedy, but beneath its laughter hid revolutionary daring. Starring Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon, it told the story of two men disguising themselves as women to escape gangsters. The premise alone horrified censors. Cross-dressing was strictly taboo. Even worse, the film gleefully played with gender roles, attraction, and ambiguity. When Jack Lemmon's character tells his new fiancée that he's actually a man, and the fiancée replies, "Well, nobody's perfect," audiences gasped. It was a punchline that detonated like dynamite. The production code tried to stop it. Religious groups condemned it. Some theaters refused to screen it. But Wilder pressed ahead, convinced the world was ready. The result? A box office smash and 6 Academy Award nominations. Critics hailed it as one of the funniest films ever made. Monroe, despite personal struggles, delivered one of her most beloved performances. Curtis and Lemmon's antics became legendary. The legacy of Some Like It Hot is eternal. It didn't just challenge censorship, it laughed in its face. By cloaking taboo themes in comedy, Wilder proved that audiences could embrace change with joy, not fear. The film signaled the death knell of the production code and the dawn of a freer Hollywood. From courtroom shocks to biker riots, from whispered scandals to outright rebellion, these films proved the 1950s were anything but quiet. Each one cracked the armor of censorship, daring to show what others tried to bury. But here's the question. Which of these bold classics shocked you most? Like, subscribe, and comment your answer. We'll keep uncovering the stories Hollywood tried to hide.